Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and I want to thank you for tuning in. This week on Wednesday's video, I am tackling a kit bash project with a Matchbox and some miscellaneous pieces parts I got kicking around. I'm not going to use the Batmobile. As always, if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to get notified of all future videos. Alright, so yeah, I got this Matchbox Willys, and I decided I wanted to do something just kind of Gaslandish, I guess you could say, post-apocalyptic, but not really. Just very mild. So I'm going to drill it out, pop off the base. I don't do a lot with Matchbox, so this is kind of fun to, these are like no stress. It is what it is. Whatever happens, happens type of builds, and for once in a while, these are kind of fun. So it's a chrome base. It holds the wheels down, or the interior holds the wheels down. I'm not going to use the wheels. I get this really crazy looking Hot Wheels Jeep thingy I bought for the knobby tires, which I think are pretty cool. They pop right out. It's just plastic base. And the only thing I wanted out of this was the wheels. So it served its purpose, and it lived a good life. Rest in peace. So popping those in, the fronts in the backs fit pretty good. They're a little wide, which is what I wanted. I'm kind of happy with that. So rolls good. And I know it's a little obscene, but I'm going to take the big ass motor that was in the Muscle Machines Camaro body that I had kicking around, and I'm going to attempt to cram it into the engine compartment. As you can see, it's a little snug. It doesn't quite fit. But that's okay. That's why they make grinding discs and Dremel tools and cut-off wheels. And that's what I'm going to do, because it's a kit bash and I really don't care what it looks like. So I'm going to cut the grill shell, the radiator shell, and I'm going to notch pretty much 90% of the top of it out so that I can fit the scoop through. And I want it to sit in there nice and snug. So I probably spent more time than I really needed to on this. But I had I guess my own reasoning behind it. I'm not really sure. I ended up grinding a little bit off the blower belt as well, but I didn't video that. That was me getting kind of irritated off camera and just saying screw it. I started grinding it down because I didn't want to cut too much more of the radiator shell, and I really didn't want to dig into the firewall at all if I didn't have to. So I get it to the point where it's nice and snug and it fits in there good. And again, the motor's kind of big for the car itself, but I just thought it looked kind of cool, and I really don't do... I tend to stay a little bit on the conservative side. So in order to get the motor in there, I got to cut the front piece off, which I don't need any more of the interior, which is the interior / engine. So I need to cut the top of it off because that's where the blower and the scoop is going to sit from the Muscle Machines. So I'm just going to kind of grind that down. I went through quite a bit on my cutting disc in this project. Cut off quite a bit more than I envisioned when I first started, but it worked out really well. So I got it to the point where it all sits flush. So with it snapped in, the motor's perfect. The wheels themselves on the front were pretty decent. The one part I do need to do is I need to make an axle tube because of the way they sat in there. Plus I wanted to change, an axle tube gives you just that slight, I know it's only like a 1/16 of an inch, but it does change the height, the ride height a little bit, so it's nice. So for this, you just pretty much cut the axle in half, the original axle. That way you still got the little tit on the end that the wheel can rotate on, and it works out really well. And what this does, if you notice, I also kind of ground away a little bit at it. And what that does is it gives me a little bit of little holes that I can actually put a little dab of glue, and that holds the axle tubes in without having to put it on the end and then sticking it in the tube. And whenever you do that, it usually just all seeps out anyways and makes your wheels kind of a pain in the ass to turn. So that works really well. I think I caught that from Austin over at Diecast Resurrection. So I'm going to cut the side pipes off because I don't want these for exhaust. So after cutting those off, I just got to trim the excess melted plastic that was kind of kicking around. That's the only, when you're dealing with a cutoff disc and plastic pieces, Obviously, the faster you go, the quicker it cuts, but it does tend to leave some goop kicking around, leftover residue and stuff that you need to trim and sand just to make it nice and smooth. So the interior, I'm not doing anything fancy with. You can see I got the rear wheels mounted with the axle tube onto the chassis. The front, I don't need to do that, so it works out good. I'm going to use some Chaos Black from Citadel as my base. Now, I left the patina on this. I kind of liked the way it was, and anything that was exposed metal or die cast, I hit with the Typhus Corrosion texture paint from Citadel. If you watch any of my other videos, Gaslands are post-apocalyptic related. I just started using this stuff. I love it. It just gives just the right look. I'd swear by it. And the Ryza Rust is a very orangey paint, but when you put it on top of the Typhus Corrosion, it gives just the right look. And you got to dry brush it on, but it looks really, really good. And even if you put it on kind of heavy, you can go back over it with your brush and brush it in a little bit and kind of work it. And it really comes out with a nice rust look to it after the fact. So you get a little bit of texture from the Typhus, a little bit of texture and the right color from the Ryza, and it's just it's a win-win. Really, really happy with it. And again, this was supposed to be a quick project. I didn't want to strip the paint. I didn't want to go crazy with, I've got some of the, as Rob from Matchbox Garage would say, Vallejo paints for the some upcoming rust projects, but I didn't want to do it on this one yet. I'm going to paint in, I kind of like the parachute that it has on the back, and I'm just going to use my paint pen to paint that in red because I'm trying to do this quickly and not take up a ton of time. This took a little bit more time than I thought, but it was still a fun kit bash project. So now I'm going to take some Nuln Oil, which is a black wash, and I'm going to hit the areas like the engine, because that's got a really shiny chrome and it looks kind of stupid on a rusted out heap of crap that I had kicking around in my junk pile. So I'll hit it again with a different wash later on, but the Nuln Oil is really a stain, and it gives gets into those cracks and crevices and kind of gives it that oily look, which I really like. So I use that on almost all my projects. So now I've got my Lead Belcher is the name of this paint. It's a deep gunmetal paint from Citadel. I use it a lot as a base coat, painting what was left of the engine that I didn't cut off. And it's more the base of what the blower and the scoop are sitting on. I end up covering it, so you can't end up seeing it at all anyways, but you never know. So I like to paint everything just in case. And I'm also painting the floors in between the seats and everything metal as well, so it has kind of like a sheet metal gasser look to it. So it's just aluminum floor pan type of thing. And the only thing that's cloth or leather or pleather is the seats. Again, I didn't go crazy on the interior. It was supposed to be a quick project. It wasn't so quick, but that's just me being anal. But it was fun. The Lead Belcher is just, like I said, it's a nice, deep silver, and it's got that aluminum look to it as well. Then once the base, which I had painted Chaos Black, I'm going back. I do things in stages. I don't do like, this is the Typhus Corrosion again. I'm going to hit that with this and the Ryza Rust on the base, but instead of doing it all at once, I just kind of do things in stages. So that's why you're seeing this again, but just on the base. And I didn't go crazy on the base. I didn't have to. Now, this is the other shade that I use a lot. This is called Agrath Earthshade, and it's got a brown, grungy tint to it, and I use it a lot on metal products, and that's what I'm kind of doing here. I'm hitting the entire interior, and it just kind of grungies it up. It's got a dirty look to it, very dirty, and that's why I like it. So I'll use it a lot of times on different engine components, sometimes after or before the Nuln Oil. So I kind of mix the black and the brown together. It just gives a layered, nice layered effect. So you can see right now I'm actually hitting the engine again, which I'd already hit with the Nuln Oil. So it just gives it a little bit more depth, I think. I can't do it with everything, but I find for the most part on a lot of things, I don't go crazy with it either. I just do it a little bit. And this is just me doing the second stage after the typhus corrosion dried on the base, hitting the riser rust. Going a little bit heavier on the base than I did on the actual car itself, figuring it's the undercarriage. Probably had a little bit more rust on it from sitting around. So you can see right there, I kind of hit it kind of hard with the orange, with the riser rust. But I'll go back over that after, and it'll just fade right in. See right there, it just looks awesome. Camera doesn't do it justice, unfortunately, just like everything else. And then I'll take the lead belcher and I'll dry brush on a little bit of a metal look, so that way some of the areas are worn, and it just kind of gives it, again, a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail. I'm not going crazy, just trying to get just enough to make it set off. I played around with a different exhaust for this. This is the base to that Camaro I had kicking around. It's got these plastic, excuse me, these plastic dump tubes. So I was kind of hoping I could come up with something. I played around with styrene, metal tubing. I just couldn't find what I was looking for. And I grabbed these, put it on there, and I just thought it looked pretty badass. So I just figured I'd glue those on. Instead of being underneath, I put them on the outside. And again, it's just a fun thing. And because they're chrome, I'm going to hit it with the wash. And I'll also hit it again with some mud, some typhus corrosion, crap like that. Just trying to keep everything consistent. I can't put something shiny on a piece of junk. So, but yeah, they look pretty good. I was kind of happy. This is another thing with my camera, whatever focus. It's called sterling mud. It's like the typhus corrosion, but it's a lot thicker and it's a lot muddier, I guess you can say. So I'm not liberally putting it on, but I'm putting it on in every place there would be some mud underneath the chassis, behind the rear wheels, stuff like that. And it definitely, when it dries, it's a thicker texture, and it's got it's mud. It dries like mud. So I like using that as well. And then again, I'll take the Xandri dust, which is a very sandy looking color, and I'll hit all the wheels and all the sides of the body, any place where I think there would be dried dirt that would have compiled up. And the wheels, obviously, if you're driving at all, they'd be dirty, so black shiny didn't really do it for me. So I'm just kind of going a little crazy with that. Then I was done, and I'm like, nah, I can't be done. I got to add a bull bar to the front. So I got some round stock solid tubing, styrene, and I'm going to mate that up to a piece of 1/16 square styrene block, and I'm going to use that to mount to the front, because there's a little bit of chassis sticking out that's flat in the front, so it works out perfect. It's a great mounting place to add it, but I wanted the bull bar to stick out a little bit, so the square tubing served as a mounting point, plus it offset it from the car just that little bit, so it wasn't rubbing on the wheels or too close. And a little dab of glue, and then I've got that quick set spray. Works good. It smells like bug spray though. I don't know why. And then again, just figured I'd go over the top. I got this, I don't even know what it is. I don't think it's human. Skull from the Citadel kit. Kind of looks like a cattle head with horns up, and I'm not really sure why I picked it, but it seemed to fit. So I'm going to put that on the front. And then really all that's left is to detail the bull bar to make it fit the rest of the car appearance-wise, which is painting it with the lead belcher, going in with the typhus corrosion, and going in with the riser rust, just to rust it out a little bit and give it that same look and feel as the rest of the car. And this was an add-on, otherwise I would have done it at the same time as I did the other stuff. But when the car was done, I looked at it, I'm like, I can make it more absurd. And that's kind of what I did. I'm using Screaming Skull over white paint for the skull, and it gives it that nice bone look. And then I'm going to wash it with some Agrath shade, which is the browner tint, which looks better on the skulls than the black Nuln Oil. So if you haven't tried it, give it a try. I think it looks a lot better. It gives it a little dirtier of a look when you're dealing with skulls, but to each their own. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to do the big reveal here and show you what I started with and what I ended up with. I want to take a second to thank everybody who watches and comments. If there's something you'd like to see me do that's like a post-apocalyptic something, comment down below. I'll make sure to take note of it. I read and I try to like and at least respond in some way to everybody's comments. So if you like what you see, thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the next one.